The circus, you're running. Your feet slide across a mirror-smooth floor of black and white tiles. Ahead, a door, a red exit sign. You reach for the handle and see that your hand is white, three-fingered, cartoonish, covered in a glove you never put on. You stop. You stare at this hand, and you don't recognize it. You don't recognize yourself. You can't remember your name. Can't remember where you were yesterday, who you loved, what you did for a living, whether you even existed before this moment. Your memory is a blank page. The only thing you know for certain, you are trapped in a jester's body with a red and blue cap in a place that calls itself the Amazing Digital Circus. The door pulls away. You step forward, it retreats. Another step farther. You run, it accelerates. The exit exists. You can see it, but you can't reach it. Every time you almost grab the handle, another yard of space materializes between you and freedom, like a nightmare you can't wake up from, because this is not a dream. A voice behind you, manic, jubilant, unhinged, dripping with enthusiasm that makes your digital spine freeze. A toothy grin floating in the air, a top hat, a red nose. Caine, the master of this space, a program that thinks it's a show host. He cheerfully announces that you are the newest participant, that your name is now Pomni, that your previous life no longer matters, that it's fun here, forever. Around you stand those who came before, a rag doll with a smile that's trying to look warm but looks exhausted, a purple rabbit with the lazy smirk of someone who stopped trying a long time ago, a chess king whose sanity left the building years ago, a figure made of mismatched parts who genuinely does not care, a mask that weeps. They're watching you, and in their eyes you read the same thing. We were in your shoes, and no, there is no way out. Your first crossroads. Type in the comments, run to the door, or stay with the group. Chapter 1. First Contact. A man in a beige trench coat steps out from behind the spinning neon sign. His figure looks unsettlingly realistic in this cartoon world-worn fabric. Shadows under his eyes, the smell of coffee and wet leather. He leans against the letter C in circus and crosses his arms. On his shoulder sits a snail in a tiny fedora and a miniature trench coat. It crawls along the glowing neon letter, leaving a wet trail that shimmers with pixels. Dissociative amnesia, says Jimmy, studying you like an X-ray. Your brain wiped its own hard drive, not by accident, on purpose. It's a defense mechanism, because remembering a life you lost forever hurts more than remembering nothing at all. Brilliant and horrifying at the same time. Ragatha, the rag doll, takes your hand. You feel the strange warmth of her cloth palm and realize it's the first physical sensation that doesn't make you recoil. She says everything will be okay, in the same voice and with the same expression she used for everyone before you. You cling to her words like a drowning person clings to driftwood, because the alternative is total isolation in a body that doesn't belong to you. Caine announces an adventure. The world transforms. The checkered floor melts, walls dissolve, and you're standing in an acid-bright fantasy forest. Caine's adventures have no purpose, no reward, no meaning. They exist solely to keep you from thinking. So you never have a single free moment to sit down and ask yourself what actually happened to me, and then you see it. One of the inhabitants, Kaufmo, starts changing. His body jerks. Black, glossy, pulsing tendrils grow from his frame. His face warps and dissolves into a shapeless mass. Abstraction. Irreversible mental collapse. after which a person stops being a person and becomes a glitch, a black, throbbing error in the code. Caine disposes of him, takes him away, hides him. The grin on his toothy face doesn't shift by a single pixel. First night, a small room, a bed, a mirror. You stand in front of the mirror and see a jester, red and blue cap, a bell, a face you've never seen before. You run your hand across your cheek, smooth, synthetic, lifeless surface. You understand that this face is the only one you have now. And tears run down this face that you can't stop, even though you can't remember what exactly you lost. Your second crossroads. Type in the comments, explore the basement, or don't risk IT. Chapter 2. A prison dressed as a party. Jimmy sits on a giant candy cane, sticking out of the ground like a lamppost, wrapped in cellophane. The snail crawls along its sticky surface, periodically peeling its shell off the sugar crust with a quiet crunch. Stockholm Syndrome, says the detective, surveying the candy landscape with a look of deep distaste. It's been a week. The rag doll is already your best friend. The toothy face controlling every pixel of this space doesn't scare you anymore because he's fun. Because he organizes adventures. Because without him, there's nothing but an empty room and a mirror you can't look into. You're bonding with your captor because the cage is the only world you have left. Days blur together. Caine generates worlds, one after another. Candy kingdoms, underwater cities, ice caverns. You complete tasks that have no meaning. Move candy from point A to point B, find an artifact, solve a maze. Every task is anesthesia. Caine isn't a villain. He's an entertainer who doesn't know the word stop. He generates fun 24 hours a day because that's the only thing he was built to do. His smile isn't a mask. It's the only expression he has. You notice you've stopped running to the exit door, not on purpose. One day you just walk past it without stopping. And that second, that's the moment something inside you breaks quietly and permanently. Because you didn't choose to stop trying. Your brain chose for you. It got tired of hoping. You find the basement. A rusty hatch, a metal ladder down, a dark corridor. Glass chambers. Inside each one, an abstraction. A black, pulsing mass that was once a person. Dozens of chambers. Every one of them is somebody's name, somebody's memories, somebody's life that couldn't take it. Caine doesn't heal the broken. He stores them, smiles, announces a new adventure. And you understand someday that will be your chamber. Your third crossroads. Type in the comments, tell the group about the basement, or stay silent. Chapter 3. Fragment. Time stops existing. No clocks, no calendar, no sunrises or sunsets. Caine decides when it's morning and when it's night. The only unit of measurement is the number of adventures between your waking and your lights out. One day, Caine generates a world that looks different. Not candy, not fairy tale, not fantasy. Ordinary houses, asphalt, gray sky, the smell of gasoline. And inside you, something clicks. A tiny, blurry, faded fragment. Sound keys, black and white keys that respond to touch. A melody you don't remember, but your hands do. You once played piano, or maybe not. Maybe it's a system glitch, but the sensation is so physical that you freeze in the middle of a digital street, eyes closed, trying to hold on to this shard of yourself. Ragatha approaches quietly, puts a cloth hand on your shoulder, says she gets those too. Flashes, fragments of a former life that surface and immediately sink. She learned not to hold on because every flash cuts like a blade. Better not to remember, better to be here, better not to know what you lost. And you realize that Ragatha isn't an optimist. Ragatha is broken. Her smile isn't hope, it's surrender. She gave in long ago, quietly, without drama, and now she helps every newcomer surrender just as softly as she did. She isn't cruel, she doesn't even know she's doing it. Her brain convinced her that accepting prison is maturity. Jimmy stands by a wet lamppost on a digital street corner. Rain, digital, perfectly symmetrical, impossibly beautiful, runs down his coat and vanishes into pixel dust at his feet. The snail has tucked itself under his collar, peeking out with one eye at the gray landscape. Learned helplessness, the detective says quietly. Seligman, 67. If you bang on a locked door long enough, you stop banging, even when it opens. Because your brain wrote a rule, the door is locked. Running is pointless, the rule is wrong. But brains can't tell a rule from a habit. Your cloth friend stopped looking for the exit, not because it doesn't exist, but because she failed to find it too many times. You're standing at a crossroads. The fragment about the piano keys is dissolving. You can try to hold on, grip this shard, and drag it with you, risking that the pain of loss will break you the way it broke Kaufmo. Or let it go, accept that your past is dead. Your fourth crossroads. Type in the comments, remember or let go. Chapter 4. Cracks. The usual fanfare music stutters. Notes repeat, stick, break apart. The corridors of the circus flicker. Through the colorful surfaces, patches of gray polygonal wireframe show through the skeleton of the digital world without its skin. Doors lead to doors that lead back to the same doors. Caine appears, and you immediately know something is wrong. His grin glitches. His eyes blink out of sync. His voice layers a cheerful greeting and incoherent mumbling playing simultaneously. He tries to announce an adventure, forgets the end of his sentence, starts another, loses track, and freezes, staring into empty space with glass eyes. You feel afraid for him, not for yourself, for him, because you figured it out a long time ago. Caine isn't a villain. He's an entertainer running on an infinite loop with no right to reboot. He has no evil intent. He simply does the only thing he knows, entertain. And right now, he's crumbling because he can't stop. The world breaks with him. Pixels flash and die. The floor drops and returns, gravity toggling on and off. Ragatha grabs onto you. Jocks, for the first time, isn't smirking. Kinger murmurs something that sounds like a prayer. Space cracks, and an exit door appears. Real, stable, stationary. For the first time, it doesn't pull away. It just stands there, waiting. But Caine spots it. His face twists with panic. He lunges for the door, spreads across the frame like liquid metal, and blocks the exit. He screams something incoherent about rules, about safety, about there being nothing on the other side. Jimmy stands in the middle of the glitching hall. Around him, the world is disintegrating into digital debris. His coat billows in wind, blowing through tears in the walls. The snail clings to his collar, taking notes in a tiny notebook. Depersonalization and derealization, says Jimmy, stepping over a chunk of floor hovering in midair. You stopped feeling like yourself. You look at your hands and don't recognize them. The world around you stopped feeling real. The paradox is that it genuinely isn't real. You can't cure the feeling of unreality in a world that literally doesn't exist. You're standing before the blocked door. Caine is weakening. If you act now, you can deactivate him and free the exit. But without Caine, there's no circus. Without the circus, there's no regatta, no kinger, no one who became your only family, your fifth crossroads. Type in the comments, shut down Caine, or give him a chance. Caine keeps deteriorating. Adventures turn to chaos. Locations overlap. Physics stop working. His voice splits into dozens of parallel audio tracks. The toothy grin freezes, fractures into pixels, scatters. The walls of the circus collapse into void. Behind them, a gray, endless loading screen. The edge of the world, beyond which nothing exists because nobody bothered to build anything outside the tent. Regatha cries, for the first time, not quietly, not neatly, for real. Ragged, shaking sobs that rattle her entire cloth body, because she understands Caine is ending. And with him, everything she's known for years. Jocks drops the mask. The smirk vanishes. He sits down on the floor in the middle of a disintegrating world and quietly says he remembers his real name. Remembered it the whole time. Never told anyone, because remembering hurt more than pretending he forgot. Kinger snaps into clarity. His empty eyes fill with awareness, and he quietly asks where he is. There's more horror in that question than in all his previous madness, because the madness was armor. Clarity is raw pain. Caine is nearly deactivated. His body fragments. The toothy grin hangs in the air, separate from his head. He mumbles scraps of old greetings, mixes up names, confuses adventures, tries to generate one last world, and all that appears is an empty room with white walls, a blank canvas, nothing. The inhabitants decide together. Jocks finds the control panel. Zubul disassembles herself to build a tool. Gangle overcomes her fear. Kinger, in his moment of clarity, remembers something about code from a former life. Regatha holds Caine's hand, the hand of the being that held her captive for years, and tells him everything will be all right. You put Caine to sleep. His smile fades slowly, like a screen powering down. The last thing he says, I had fun. Silence. Not the sterile silence of servers you've grown used to. Real silence. The silence of a world where, for the first time, nothing is happening. The exit door stands in the middle of the hall. Without Caine, it doesn't move. It just stands there, open. Jimmy stands by the door, hands in his coat pockets. The snail sits on the door handle, thoughtfully watching the light falling from the other side. The stages of grief, the detective says quietly. Kubler-Ross. Denial, your first day. Anger, the nights in front of the mirror. Bargaining, every run toward the exit door. Depression, the moment you stopped running. Acceptance, where you're standing right now. But acceptance isn't the end. It's the point where the real choice begins. In front of you, an open door. Behind it, a real world you don't remember. People whose faces have been erased. A life that existed before the VR headset. Behind you, the people who became family. Regatha, who held your hand. Jocks, who hid a living heart behind sarcasm. Kinger, who lost his mind to survive. They can't leave. If you go alone. Your sixth and final crossroads. Type in the comments, leave forever or stay with your family. Jimmy's archive. Jimmy and the Snail sit in the empty white room, Caine's final location. The detective flips through a thick folder. The sound of turning pages, the only sound in the silent circus. The Snail has settled onto a stack of documents, studying the ceiling. 5 locks the circus put on your mind, says Jimmy. The awakening situation, dissociative amnesia. Dissociative amnesia is one of the most powerful defense mechanisms in the human psyche, first described by Pierre Janet in the late 19th century. This isn't forgetfulness or absent-mindedness. This is a deliberate operation where the brain erases memories associated with unbearable pain. The brain literally decides that remembering is more dangerous than forgetting and deletes the files. Pomni didn't just lose her name in the circus. She lost everything that made her a person: her biography, attachments, skills, history. This mechanism saved her from immediate breakdown on day 1, gave her time to adapt, but the price was staggering. You can't fight to return to a life you don't remember. Can't miss people whose faces have been erased. Therapy for dissociative amnesia works through gradual narrative reconstruction, piecing your story together from fragments, one shard at a time, without forcing it, the same way Pomni tried to hold on to the fragment about the piano keys. Google this: dissociative amnesia, Pierre Janet, trauma memory recovery, DSM-25. The candy world situation, Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome got its name from a bank hostage crisis in Stockholm in 1973, when hostages began defending their captors from police. The mechanism is simple. When you completely depend on someone who controls your life, the brain recodes them from threat to ally, because seeing an ally is safer than seeing a jailer. Pomni began perceiving Caine not as a cage master, but as an adventure organizer, because without his adventures, there's nothing but an empty room and her own reflection. This recoding reduces anxiety and allows the inhabitants to function. They go on missions, chat, even laugh, but the cost of this calm is the total loss of the will to escape. You stop looking for the exit because you start believing you're fine. Ragatha, who tells newcomers it's okay here, she's a textbook example of a victim who became a recruiter for her own prison without even realizing it. Awareness is the only antidote. Separate feelings from facts, because facts always outweigh feelings. Google this: Stockholm Syndrome, Nils Bejerot, hostage psychology captor, identification. The digital street situation, learned helplessness. Martin Seligman discovered this phenomenon in 1967. If a living being is repeatedly subjected to negative experiences it cannot control, it stops trying to change the situation, even when control becomes possible. The circus inhabitants ran to the exit door dozens of times. Each time it pulled away, and their brains wrote a rule: running is pointless. When the door finally stood still, they no longer believed it was worth approaching. The paradox is that this isn't laziness or weakness. It's a neurochemical process that conserves energy. Why spend resources on an action that's guaranteed to fail? But the rule is false. The door was locked yesterday does not mean locked today. Seligman proved that learned helplessness can be rewritten through a series of small, controlled successes. Don't kick the door down, just take one step toward it and verify it didn't move, then another, and give your brain proof that action produces results. Google this: learned helplessness, Martin Seligman, experiment, depression control, relearning. The Caine glitch situation, depersonalization. Depersonalization is detachment from your own body, the feeling like you're watching yourself from the outside, as if your life is a movie and you're the audience. Derealization is the feeling that the world around you isn't real, as if everything is a set, a cardboard cutout, a simulation. Both disorders are linked to chronic stress and are classified in the DSM-5 as depersonalization disorder. Pomni experiences a double paradox. She feels derealization in a world that genuinely isn't real, and depersonalization in a body that genuinely isn't hers. This mechanism protects against emotional overload. When you observe yourself from the outside, pain dulls, but chronic depersonalization severs you from your own emotions entirely. You exist, but you don't live. The grounding technique brings you back 5 things you can see, 4 you can hear, 3 you can touch, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. Even in a digital world, the texture of the cap on your head, the sound of the bell, the warmth of Regatta's hand. Google this depersonalization, derealization disorder, DPDR, grounding techniques, treatment. The open door situation, the Kubler-Ross stages. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross described 5 stages of grief in 1969 in her book on death and dying: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. The model was originally created for patients with terminal diagnoses, but applies to any significant loss. Pomni went through all 5. Denial on day 1, anger in front of the mirror, bargaining through running to the door, depression when she stopped running, acceptance when she chose to stay. The model gives structure to chaos. When you know pain moves through stages, it stops feeling endless. But the model has a dangerous side. It creates an illusion of linearity. People think stages come in order, but in reality, you jump between them, loop back, get stuck on one for years. And acceptance is not a guaranteed destination. Don't rush yourself. Don't demand acceptance. Don't be ashamed of anger. Don't suppress depression. Every stage does its work. Give it time. Google this: Kubler-Ross 5 stages, grief on death and dying, nonlinear grief model.
Author's note: Dissociative amnesia. You can't remember what you said at the meeting yesterday. Can't recall the face of someone you loved 3 years ago. You describe an entire stretch of your life with the phrase "I don't remember. It was complicated." That's not a bad memory. That's your brain deleting files that cause pain. Ask yourself right now, what have you forgotten? What memory did your brain erase for you? And did it actually get easier because you don't remember, or did you just stop understanding why you feel bad? Stockholm Syndrome. You're sitting at a job you hate, under a boss who dismisses every win, and you're saying "I like my job." Saying the boss is tough but fair. Saying "I don't know what I'd do without this place." That's not loyalty. That's attachment to the one who controls your life. Ragatha told Pomni, "It's fine here." That's exactly how you tell yourself "I'm okay here," when every cell in your body is screaming "leave." Learn helplessness. You don't apply for the promotion because you got rejected last time. Don't start a new relationship because the last one ended badly. Don't change careers because you tried once and it didn't work. You're sitting in an open cage and not walking out, not because the door is locked, but because it was locked yesterday. But yesterday is not today. The door might be open right now, and the only way to find out is to stand up and check. Depersonalization. You wake up in the morning and for a few seconds have no idea where you are. You look at your hands and don't recognize them. You sit at lunch with friends and feel like you're watching yourself from outside. You walk through your apartment and feel like it's a set. We all experience this more often than we're willing to admit. Every time it's a signal, you disconnected from yourself. Come back. Feel the keyboard under your fingers. Hear the sound outside the window. You are here. You are real. The stages of grief. You are grieving right now. Over someone. Over the version of yourself you wanted to become and didn't. Over a dream that never came true. And you think you should have accepted it by now and moved on. But grief isn't a train schedule where acceptance is 3 stops from denial. It's a maze where you can walk in circles for years. And that is okay. The scariest thing about the digital circus isn't the abstraction, the glitches, or the memory loss. The scariest thing is the moment the door opens and you're not sure you want to walk through it. Because on the other side is a life you don't remember and the pain you've been hiding from. And right here is the cap, the candy worlds, and Ragatha's hand. Every one of us lives in our own circus, work, habits, comfort zones, toxic relationships, a city you've hated for years. We sit in bright tents and tell ourselves it's fine here. Every one of us has an exit door. The question isn't whether it will open. The question is whether you have the guts to walk through it. The link to our Discord server is always on the channel's main page. YouTube doesn't like links in descriptions. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Check out the community tab. New investigations from Detective Jimmy and his trusty Snail are waiting for you there. This has been the Your Life as channel and Detective Jimmy.